now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
I have not loved this conversation.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. We got a day. We got a show. We got a day. Very, very serious stuff going on today. So, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna spend a lot of time talking about what's going on with abortion rights. So, bit of a bad day yesterday. Actually incredibly terrible for birthing persons. And so we're going to get into all the details, including what this is all about, as well as so far Biden's response, the Democrats' response, what they could have done better. And then, of course, we have Suzanne Collins. We're going to talk about her. And then Fox News spreading the most ridiculous lies. So, that said, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Helps us out greatly. With that said, let's do it. Let's just kind of jump into it because we've got a lot of ground to cover. All right. On Monday night, Politico dropped a figurative bombshell. Apparently, a leaked draft majority opinion written by Samuel Alito would overturn the landmark Roe versus Wade decision. So now this has since been proven to be an actual draft. So it has been authentic, and so authenticated or it is true. So that's what they're going to do. Here comes the end of Roe v. Wade. Now, the draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision. This is according to Politico's Josh Gerstein and Alexander Ward, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights in a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained or affirmed that right. So already we've got court precedent. We have these two decisions in the Supreme Court that were decided even by conservative justices back in the day, but that doesn't matter now because here we have an incredibly activist Supreme Court, which is far right, in the majority. So understand that ending legal abortion, which is what this would do in many different states, it basically is the culmination of the conservative takeover of the Supreme Court, and it's what they've been gunning for decades. It's time to panic. It's panic time. They have come for your rights. If you're a woman, if you are a person capable of giving birth, getting pregnant, whether it be a trans person as well, you're in danger. The conservatives have come for your rights. And it's not just the rights of women, non-binary, who can get pregnant, or trans people who can get pregnant, but also the rights of men as well are under attack. It's all human rights. Reproductive rights are human rights. And it will lead to worse things. All right, so now, Gerstein writes that justices can and sometimes do change their votes as draft opinions circulate, and major decisions can be subject to multiple drafts and vote trading, sometimes until just days before a decision is unveiled. Now, the thing that's unique about this, though, is that We've never seen this happen before. We've never seen a draft leaked. Who leaked it and for what reason? And again, there are a lot of different, I guess, theories about this. Maybe it was a liberal staffer that had leaked this, or what if it's a conservative staffer that had leaked this? And right now, the narrative over at Fox News is leaker, right? And so they already have that narrative. And now, of course, the court is not happy about this. Let's just say that. The court is not happy about this. And there is already an investigation. I'm guessing we are going to hear all about the investigation and not actually what this entails, which is the end of legal abortion in this country and a lot of different states. All right, so now let's get into the opinion, though. We'll get into that other stuff later. Here's the opinion written by Alito. So I've got some quotes here. Here's what he writes. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision. So right there, he's basically saying, since it is not explicitly written inside of the Constitution that you have a right to an abortion, then you don't have a right to an abortion. And not only that, but again, this can be applied to every other decision that is based off of the right to privacy, which is what the decision for Roe v. Wade was based on. And so now you have all of those things. And again, I'll go through the details in another segment of what that means for other things like Obergefell, for example, or Loving Virginia, interracial marriage, or even sodomy laws, which is Lawrence v. Texas. It's going to have a massive ripple effect on all of these decisions that were based on the right of privacy. So that's very, very important. Now, he continues by writing that Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak. Really? Privacy? And the decision has had damaging consequences, such as, and then says, it is time to heed the Constitution and return to the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Oh, really? So now, again, you're going to turn it back to elected representatives in heavily gerrymandered districts in elections that are decided by a minority of people, where you have turnout that is incredibly dismal. Right. Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, it's a great idea for them. Now, look, Republicans have this straw manning position, conservative activists, about people who are defending the right to an abortion. They're saying that pro-choice activists want abortion on demand up until the moment of birth. Now, that's not true. So now here's how Roe v. Wade generally works, right? So now this was back in the ruling here. The court said in a 7-2 ruling that a state law that broadly prohibits abortion without respect to the stage of pregnancy or other interests will violate the right of privacy, which is why it was ruled that in the first trimester, the state may not regulate the abortion decision, meaning that it is up to the individual, up to the pregnant person and their attending physician. Afterwards, then the state can start getting involved, because originally the state under Republicans were trying to get in between you and your doctor. Does that sound familiar, that argument? Now, in the second trimester, the state then may impose some regulations on abortion that are reasonably related to maternal health. The third trimester, once the fetus reaches a point of viability, the state may regulate abortion or prohibit them entirely, so long as the laws contain exceptions for cases when abortion is necessary to save the life or health of the mother. Now, have we seen in some of these red states, that are very, very anti-abortion, they do not even have those clauses in them. And yet, without Roe v. Wade, that would be legal. So that's how it works, right? Now, getting to the issue of straw manning, as I had mentioned before. Oh, they want abortions up into the moment of birth. No, that's ridiculous. That's an incredible stretch. Incredible stretch. In reality, late-term abortions are very, very rare. According to the Guttmacher Institute, abortions at or after 21 weeks are very uncommon and represent just 1% of all abortions in the U.S. Just 1%. And the reasons they seek these abortions include medical concerns or maternal life endangerment, as well as the barriers, and this is very important, about half of all women that were polled had talked about that had gotten an abortion after 21 weeks, said, that's because I either didn't know that I was pregnant or I ran into these legal barriers that were preventing me from getting an abortion, legal or financial barriers. And that's, of course, thanks to Republicans who made those barriers, who put those barriers into place to block you from getting an abortion that you were legally entitled to do. So understand that. But not only that, of course, related, states had already passed laws to restrict access to abortions later in pregnancy. And that, of course, destroys our argument that, oh, it's the late-term abortion. All of that's a smokescreen. What they want to do is honestly criminalize all abortions and put them back into the back alley coat hangers. So you have that. And again, that's what they want to do. Every single abortion they want to get rid of. If it kills a mother, that's fine. If the fetus is going to die anyway, that's fine. We're pro-life. Now we made both of them die instead of just one that was going to die anyway. Now we made both of the people die. Pro-life. Yeah. Way to go. Way to go. Now, again, that is not the will of the American people. In fact, before I get to the polling on that, here's a little bit more of Alito's position. He said that Roe imposed the same highly restrictive regime on the entire nation and effectively struck down the abortion laws of every single state. We are forcing the regime of allowing people to choose whether or not they have abortions on the entire nation. Ah, yes, how dare you force choice on me? How dare you? He said that it represented the exercise of raw judicial power. Strange. That's what they're doing right now. And sparked a national controversy that has embittered our political culture for half a century. He said in some states, voters may believe that the abortion right should be even more extensive than the right Casey and Roe recognized. Voters in other states may wish to impose tight restrictions based on the belief that abortion destroys an unborn human being. The court short-circuited the democratic process by closing it to the large number of Americans who dissented in any respect from Roe. Together, Roe and Casey represent an error that cannot be allowed to stand. This court's inability to end debate on the issue should not have been surprising. This court cannot bring about the permanent resolution of a rancorous national controversy simply by dictating a settlement and telling the people to move on. Well, now, hold on. Who kept creating the controversy? Right-wingers. The pro-lifers who would go out, so-called pro-lifers, that would go out and actually protest outside of abortion clinics. It would harass the women that would go in there. And not just abortion clinics, of course, any reproductive health clinic that may also actually do abortions as well. And some that don't. They'd sit out there and they'd harass women going in for pap smears, going in for any sort of reproductive health care. Because they think, yeah, abortion. No, this has been a narrative that has been driven by the right-wing media sphere. That's what's been going on. That's why it's a big issue. That's why it's a rancorous debate. Because there's one side that has made it a rancorous debate, and the other side that hasn't stopped any of the messaging on it. He then says, we therefore hold the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey must be overruled, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. Now, look, here's why that would be a disaster. According to an NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll, a total of 77% of Americans say the Supreme Court should uphold Roe. It's very popular, and that's not my reasoning, but again, it would be a disaster. 26 states, representing some 40 million women, have anti-abortion laws at the ready from when Roe is struck down. Those states are Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. 9 states in this group have pre-Roe abortion restrictions that are still in the books. 13 have so-called trigger bans that are tied to Roe being overturned. And 5 states have laws passed after Roe restricting nearly all abortion. Another dozen states have 6 or 8 week abortion restrictions that are not currently in effect, while 1 state, Texas, has a 6-week abortion restriction in effect, and 4 states have constitutions, including Michigan, that bar right to an abortion. So now, an additional 4 Republican-controlled states, Indiana, Montana, Nebraska, and Florida, are poised to pass laws restricting abortion. And so Florida, for example, has a 15-week abortion restriction that will go in effect in July. And the law makes no exceptions for cases of rape or incest, only to save the life of the mother. So now that's, I mean, again, look at all those states. 40 million people, women, will be affected by this. That's a lot. And yet, according to the same poll, 13% of Americans overall say Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And that's it. So what that is an incredibly small minority of people that are making the rules, that are going to make the rules for millions of women. Millions. That is a radical minority of Americans. Radical. 77%. At least according to one poll. Other polls have it upwards of 60 and 70%. That support keeping Roe v. Wade. And there are variations of like, oh, well, we should maybe add a couple more restrictions, or we should take a couple of restrictions away. There's a little bit of nuance on that, but generally they're saying, well, just keep Roe. Roe is a framework, and then maybe add on to it, maybe expand it, maybe do a little bit more restriction, maybe do a slightly less restriction, but keep it because it is fundamental. That, you know what that means? They're pro-choice. That's what it is, pro-choice. And yet half the states that represent millions of Americans who will be affected by this, they're poised to take away the rights of a majority. And how does that happen? Well, that happens through gerrymandering. It happens through money in politics. It happens through voter suppression. It happens through low voter turnout. It happens to voter apathy. And what this results in is a tiny minority of people who are in control and are making decisions, trying to make decisions for everyone else on an issue that doesn't involve them whatsoever. You want to call yourself individualist, small government, conservative? But you're using big government to try to impose your will on other people. And it will trickle out. It will trickle down. It will have ripples on other decisions that are based on this fundamental right of privacy. I would say that it's time to wake up and fight, but honestly, for some of us, we've already been awake. And for the rest of you, look, we should have been fighting this years ago. This should have been codified years ago. This shouldn't even be a debate on choice. We said that was going to happen, that this would happen, that Republicans would do this if they had a chance. And now it looks like, oh, look, they told us exactly what they were going to do, And then they did it. Big surprise. Not really. Okay, more. Let's get to the extraordinarily weak response. On Monday night, a leaked draft of the Supreme Court's upcoming decision on Roe v. Wade, basically killing the right to an abortion, was released. Now, there's some responses to this. Again, Republicans are just absolutely in glee, whereas you have Democrats that are basically saying, please vote. Vote harder, everybody. Now, look, let's go to Joe Biden, who this morning released a statement, and then later on, of course, reiterated some of this in a video. I don't have that video, but I will read you the statement here, and then I'm going to tell you what we should have done. Here's what he said. He said, "We do not know whether this draft is genuine or whether it reflects the final decision of the court." Now, this is before it was confirmed as being authentic, but he goes on. With that critical caveat, I want to be clear on the 3 points about the cases before the Supreme Court. First, my administration argued strongly before the court in defense of Roe v. Wade. We said that Roe is based on a long line of precedent recognizing the 14th Amendment's concept of personal liberty against government interference with intensely personal decisions. I believe that a woman's right to choose is fundamental. Roe has been the law of the land for almost 50 years. Basic fairness and the stability of our law demand that it not be overturned. So let me just start there and say, do you think Republicans give a shit about precedent? Do you think that Republicans are going to care about laws and norms? These are people that rushed the Capitol on January 6th. These are people of which half of them do not believe that Joe Biden won the election fairly. Now, of course they don't care. Again, this is getting to the problem with the Democrats, okay? But first, let me continue with this, okay? So now, he said, secondly, shortly after the enactment of the Texas law SB 8 and other laws restricting women's reproductive rights, I directed my Gender Policy Council and White House counsel's office to prepare options for an administration response to the continued attack on abortion and reproductive rights, under a variety of possible outcomes in the cases pending before the Supreme Court. We will be ready when any ruling is issued. Third, if the court does overturn Roe, it will fall on the nation's elected officials at all levels of government to protect a women's right to choose. And it will fall on voters to elect pro-choice officials this November. At the federal level, we will need more pro-choice senators and a pro-choice majority in the House to adopt legislation that codifies Roe, which I will work to pass and sign into law. So, basically, vote harder, guys. Get out there. Vote. Okay, but here's the thing, right? You're in power. People put you in power. And you've done nothing about this. Nothing. You could have codified this before. Didn't happen. And by the way, we are looking into preparing some options. Why didn't you do that before? This is not something that should have happened. They should have been planning this. Even before Trump gave Republicans a majority in the Supreme Court. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch. How did you not know that they were going to go after Roe v. Wade? When they said, we're going after Roe v. Wade, everybody. Well, okay, to be fair, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch absolutely lied during their confirmation hearings. Republicans, you've been telling us who you are for as long as I've been in politics. Why don't Democrats listen? They're telling you this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of reproductive freedom. We're going to get rid of the right for gay people to get married. We're going to go after trans people. And then they do it. And Democrats are Pikachu face. Oh my God, I can't believe they would do the things that they tell us that they were going to do. Well, that's completely different from what we do. We tell people that we're going to do all sorts of things, and then we don't do it. And then we come up with excuses like the parliamentarian. We come up with excuses like, oh, filibuster. What are you going to do? Ah, shoot. We're going to raise the minimum wage and make your life objectively better. But we couldn't, parliamentarian. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So apparently now they tell us, well, vote. You got to go there and vote. You got to vote harder. You got to vote harder. So that what? When we get into power, we're still going to do nothing? Because they don't do anything. And again, Democrats do have share in the blame of this. Again, back in 2013, Harry Reid and the Democrats in the Senate, they killed the filibuster rule, right, on executive branch nominations and the federal judicial appointments. The Republicans then took power because Democrats didn't deliver and extended that to the SCOTUS nomination in 2017. Now, that is after Republicans blocked Merrick Garland's nomination to the Supreme Court for an entire year. Now, at that point, we had Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama, early on in his presidency, had the option, had the ability, had the numbers to codify Roe v. Wade. He had a super majority. All three branches of government and the Supreme Court could have codified Roe v. Wade right then. But what did he do instead? Nothing. He went and gave us a pro-corporate healthcare plan. Spent all that political capital. Oh, the Republicans, they'll never get rid of Roe v. Wade. They'll never get rid of the right to an abortion. We believe that they will honor the precedent. Oh, yes. They have so much honor and respect for these institutions. Weakness. Utter weakness. And Republicans, they saw the weakness in the Democrats, saw that they had absolutely no spine. And so they attacked. And here's where we're at. So Democrats didn't fight back when Republicans blocked the nomination of Merrick Garland. They thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Oh, no worries. Hillary Clinton. The sheer fucking hubris, right? And at the same time, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, look, I like RBG. I liked her. But at the same time, she was getting up there. She could have stepped down. She could have allowed the Democrats to pick her replacement. But instead of doing the effective thing, all they cared about is their legacy. The legacy. Oh, she'll be fine. Oh, you know what? She'll step down during Hillary Clinton's presidency. Yes, that thing that never actually happened. And then we'll let Hillary Clinton replace her, which again, didn't happen. And of course, throughout the entire thing, their messaging was infuriating. Have you seen the other side? Oh, I mean, we may be feckless corporate tools, but the other side's, at least we're not crazy like those people are. Oh, look at those crazy people. Well, thing is, if you're a feckless corporate tool that doesn't actually deliver for the people, you invite crazy. You invite crazy on the other sides. You create the division. You create the extremism by doing absolutely nothing to improve people's lives. So here we have, after that mess, President Trump, a Republican Congress, no Supreme Court nominee filibuster, and an ailing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court nominees. Now, at that point, you would think, oh God, we have messed up. We really shit the bed on this one. But no, they thought that they could continue to negotiate with Republicans. Negotiate. They thought they could support corporate Democrats like Henry Cuellar, who are anti-choice. By the way, they're not pro-choice, over pro-choice progressives like Jessica Cisneros in Texas. And in fact, they fought progressives in primaries way harder than they fought against these Republicans. I remember a conversation a few years ago with a more liberal friend, okay, who said that, oh, don't worry, Jeff, they'll never get rid of Roe v. Wade. And I said, well, why is that? I'm curious. Well, that's because they would lose their wedge issue and they would lose their fundraising. So, look, they don't actually mean it when they say they're going to get rid of abortion. Oh, really? Yeah, I remember arguing at the time that Republicans were monstrous, and of course they would do it. They don't like the idea of reproductive freedom. They want to control women. And so when they get the chance, what are they going to do? They're going to kill it. Who was right? Unfortunately, I was, and I hate it. Look, these people, Republicans, are the monstrous people that we've known them to be. Okay? And so when they do something monstrous, that's not a surprise. But it seems to be a surprise to Democrats all the time, every time they do something not monstrous. Oh my God, I can't believe Republicans are a threat. Are a threat to women, are a threat to democracy. I can't believe it. I didn't know this. I mean, yes, we're in the same cocktail circuit. I don't understand. I thought the game was you make threats of doing horrible things, but don't actually do it, and then we fundraise off of it. That's how it's supposed to work. But now you've gone and actually done the things, the horrible things that you said you were going to do, and you are just, you're still making it pretty easy for us to fundraise, but we're still not going to do anything. Again, they're not making threats anymore. They're doing it for real. And again, once Roe is gone, they're going to come after other things. They're going to come after Obergefell. They're going to come after voting rights, even more so. They're going to come after everything the that the Democrats have failed in large part to stand up for. That's why people like Wendy Davis, Mallory McMurrow, that's when they went viral, because that was actually a time where where Democrats actually looked like they had a spine. It stood up against Republicans. And look, Democrats have been very silent when it comes to the culture wars. They, as a party, have not put forward that message. They have not fought back against Republicans when they lie about late-term abortions, when they lie about Black Lives Matter, not the organization, but the movement itself, when they lie about Antifa, when Democratic strategists like James Carville will come out and call wokeism a problem. Sounds like he just came off the segment on Tucker Carlson. Do you know that PragerU and Daily Wire, all these conservative organizations, have been pouring money, time, and resources into culture war issues, into propaganda, and have been aiming it at children, by the way? And Matt Walsh with his anti-trans book. Where are the Democrats fighting on the culture wars? All you see of them from Democrats is, oh, we just disagree with Republicans on just a little bit of stuff. But, I mean, we'll come together and say that, we both agree in spending more money in the military and doing more austerity. I mean, well, I totally agree with the Republicans on that, even though they're a little bit crazy on social issues. But, they're right about economic issues. No, they're not. And yes, some have finally come around to saying, well, it seems like some of them are kind of crazy. But, that's still not the whole Republican Party, right? No, it is the whole party. At this point, yes. Half of them believe that Biden is an illegitimate president. And half of that believe that Democrats are Satan-worshiping pedophiles who drink the blood of children. Some of the worst shit. Wake up, Democrats. Wakey, wakey. No more mealy-mouth responses. No, you actually need to fight. And I don't mean fight by fundraising, by telling people to vote harder. That's not going to solve the problem. Speaking up when you've already lost doesn't help anything. No, you need to actually fight Republicans for real. I'm not saying like physically, right? No, you need to engage in the culture wars. Okay? You need to engage also in economic populism, because that's where they're weak. And if you're not willing to fight back in the culture wars and to do economically populist things to actually help people's material conditions, then you need to get the fuck out of Congress and make way for people who actually will fight. This is serious, guys. No more messing around. Okay. Let's go to Suzanne Collins. During the confirmation hearings of now Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, Senator Suzanne Collins, a Republican from Maine, promised that, I'm not going to vote for anybody who's going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Oh, no, of course not. I'm a pro-choice moderate Republican. Well, following the leaked draft of the decision that would remove Roe v. Wade, now Suzanne Collins appears to be to feel a bit hoodwinked. Who knew? Now, despite warnings that a conservative Supreme Court would kill reproductive freedom, she still seems to be very surprised, a Pikachu face, about this whole thing. I don't understand how this would happen. Now, CNN's Manu Raju recently caught up with Collins. Here's what that interaction was like. Raju reports Collins telling him, quote, "If this leaked draft opinion is the final decision and this reporting is accurate, it would be completely inconsistent with what Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh said in their hearings and in our meetings in our office." Okay, for one, it is real. It's been confirmed. It's authentic. Okay. Chief Justice John Roberts is furious about it being leaked and has demanded an investigation. In fact, that's all Fox News is talking about now. And so, yes, it is real, and it appears that he had lied to you. So now, I don't think any of us would be surprised, but let me show you a video that has been going around since last night. This is of course, Suzanne Collins defending her decision to vote to nominate Justice Kavanaugh. Take a look.
I do not believe that Brett Kavanaugh will overturn
His precedents are overturned.
He noted that Roe had been reaffirmed 19 years later by Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and that it was precedent on precedent. He said it should be extremely rare that it be overturned, and it should be an example.
So you have obviously full confidence.
I do. We talked about whether he considered Roe to be settled law. He said that he agreed with what Justice Roberts said at his nomination hearing, in which he said that it was settled law. I could not vote for a judge who had demonstrated hostility to Roe v. Wade because it would indicate a lack of respect for precedent. What Judge Kavanaugh told me, and he's the first Supreme Court nominee that I've interviewed out of 6 who has told me this, is that he views precedent not just as a legal doctrine, but as rooted in our Constitution. And he reveres our Constitution. I asked him, is it sufficient if 5 current sitting justices believe that Roe should be overturned? And he said no. I would not support a nominee who demonstrated hostility to Roe v. Wade, because that would mean to me that their judicial philosophy did not include a respect for established decision. Judge Kavanaugh is the first Supreme Court nominee to express the view that precedent is not merely a practice and tradition, but rooted in Article 3 of our Constitution itself. I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
Oops. I can't believe she trusted the beer guy. I like beer. I drink beer. I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. I didn't sexually assault that woman. Really? Really? Okay. All right. You took that guy at his word. And by the way, she said that all that was smears from the left. Huh. Well, interesting. It appears that this man had lied to you and lied to everyone else. Weird. Except not weird. We know. Now, she had also ignored the fact that Trump had made a promise to his voters. And I'm going to say, this actually is one of the only promises that he had actually kept to his voters. Okay? And here's that. He told you what he planned to do, and then, well, he did it.
I am pro-life, and I will be appointing pro-life judges. I would think that will go back to the individual states.
But I'm asking you specifically, would you
If they overturned it, it'll go back to the states.
But what I'm asking you, sir, is do you want to see the court overturn? You just said you want to see the court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
No, would you look at that? Automatically happen. Gee. And that's what happened. Again, Donald Trump, massively full of shit. But he actually was right about this one. He said, I'm going to put pro-life justices on the Supreme Court. And that's exactly what I did. And look, that's exactly what happened. Now, Roe v. Wade, gone. Gone. Now, tell me again how Judge Kavanaugh is so in love with precedent. How they value the doctrine of precedent and the decisions that had already been made and that they'll never change it. No. But you don't understand, guys. He gave a promise and a pinky swear. I can't believe he would ever lie to me. And to Congress, by the way, during his job interview. Really? You don't think that somebody would lie in their job interview to become a Supreme Court justice? Really? No, Republicans had already lined this up. This plan to kill reproductive rights. And guess what? When they're done, they're going to come for every privacy-based decision that isn't explicitly spelled out in the Constitution. Because again, going back to Alito's argument, the Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision. So what they're doing is that they're going to expand that out, like same-sex marriage, contraception coverage, interracial marriage, what kind of sex you have in your own home with another consenting adult. All of these decisions are now open to the court for reinterpretation. And so they're coming for every single social advance we have made as a country in the last 50 years. They're going to take us back to the bad old days. And we have Suzanne Collins and her party to thank for it. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, Suzanne Collins knew about this. I don't know what's in Suzanne Collins' head. Either way you slice it, whether or not she had planned to do this and agreed with it or not, doesn't really matter at this point. She still allowed it to happen. It's still on her, at least partly, for nominating or for not for nominating, but for confirming these justices and allowing this decision to happen. Okay. Anyway, let's go to Fox News. A Fox News panel went off the rails on Tuesday when one of the guests claimed that Democrats wanted abortion beyond the birth of a child. So now who's going to make this ridiculous argument? It's Cassie Smedile, the executive director of America Rising Pro-Trump PAC. And she's going to be talking to Sandra Smith, as well as a former Biden surrogate. We'll get to him later, but first, here's that ridiculous statement.
What about the rights of the tens of millions of unborn babies that have been relentlessly under attack by the left for decades now? We are not talking about the same conversation that happened 40 years ago. Today's Democrats are advocating in many cases for the rights to have an abortion beyond the birth of the child. And most Americans would say that's not something that sits well with me.
Wait, what? Beyond the birth of a child? That wouldn't be abortion, moron. That's not a real thing. What she is out there doing is basically claiming that Democrats are murdering babies after they're born. What? And by the way, that's not true. I shouldn't have to point out how completely false that is. But the whole discussion as well about late-term abortion, it's not actually a real thing, is all bullshit. And the reason I say late-term abortion isn't a real thing is because you have the medical community that is pointing out that, hey, that's not a real thing. In fact, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists has written that late-term abortion has no medical meaning and should not be used in clinical or legal settings, meaning that it's essentially Republican propaganda. It is political speak. That's it. It's used for political purposes. It's not real. All right, now, let's get to some data, right, to kind of back me up here. Now, according to the CDC's abortion surveillance data, the vast majority of abortions, 91%, occur at or before 13 weeks of gestation, while 7% occur from weeks 14 to 20 weeks gestation, and just 1.2% of abortions are performed at or after 21 weeks. The big chunk of the later ones are because women either didn't know that they needed it, didn't know that they were pregnant, or did not have access to timely abortion care or the resources to get that abortion earlier. In fact, as part of the Turnaway study out of the University of California, San Francisco, from the years 2008 to 2010, over 440 women were asked about why they experienced delays in obtaining abortion care, if any. Almost half of all individuals who obtained the abortion after 20 weeks did not suspect that they were pregnant until later in pregnancy. And other barriers to care included lack of information on where to access an abortion, transportation difficulties, lack of insurance coverage, and inability to pay for the procedure. That's it. Now, one more thing to note before I show you the response. Many of the terms used to discuss abortion later in pregnancy, they're designed to communicate nothing more than a political message. That's it. It's not precise medical concepts. And so whenever we have a discussion, whenever the right wing, whenever you hear this speak about abortions, when they try and attempt to make it about science, understand that they're not using scientific terms. They're not using medical terms. They're using political terms. And that's very important to note. So now let's go to the pushback here. Again, this is a former Biden surrogate. He's going to kind of push back a little bit. Take a look.
To Cassie's point, I don't know of any serious leading Democrat, any real elected Democrat that supports abortion for a baby already delivered. That is extreme. That's murder in this country. And no Democrat supports that. I support fundamental limits on abortion in terms of well, which governor supports actual murder of a child delivered?
Former governor of Virginia. That was a big scandal you guys tried to push under the rug.
Which governor?
But so address
Ralph Northam. That's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
Well,
there's a radio interview
that's actual murder, Cassie. But listen, I think the president and the vast majority of Americans fundamentally support the Roe decision, 50 years, obviously strong, but also support, to Cassie's point, some fundamental limits on abortion. I fundamentally agree with bans on third trimester abortions, when there is a heartbeat, when the fetus can feel pain. So that's where the majority of Americans are in this country. They support Roe,
right, we've got to leave it there.
Some of those limits.
We appreciate both of you joining us on the breaking news.
Of today's Democrat Party is.
Thank
Oh, she had to get in that last little dig too, huh? Of course, of course. Look, again, he made all the good points, but he got steamrolled. Still got steamrolled by both, Fox News, that host Sandra Smith, and by Cassie Smeedle or whatever. And so, I mean, Democrats, you got to get on the messaging. You got to get better than this. You can't just go like, oh, no, I actually do agree with you. Yes. Now, let's get to the facts here for one. Okay. So, look, where are the American people? Where's the Democratic Party when it comes to abortion? What do they actually believe? So I've got some polls. So let's talk about this, right? So look, this is a public view of abortion. About 60% want it legal in all or most cases. Now, this is surveys conducted by telephone, which missed a lot of people between 1995 and 2005. So look, again, you can see all that stuff. Generally, support tends to now be around 60 to 70%. All right. So, and that's, again, legal in all or most cases. Now, among Democrats, Democratic voters say, 80% support Roe v. Wade. Now, other polls do show a little bit of nuance. For example, broken down, 26% say they would like to see it remain in place. And I'm saying of all American people, but with a little bit more restrictions added. 21% want to see Roe expanded to establish the right to abortion under any circumstance. So that's not the majority Democratic position. 16% want to keep it the way it is. 14% want to see some of the restrictions allowed under Roe reduced. 13% say that it should be overturned. Broken down by party, 31% say of Democrats say that expand it under any circumstance. So, all right. I don't think it's the Democrats that have the extreme position here. And I'm not even going to say Republicans. Most Republicans also do not have an extreme position on this. 59% of Republicans polled say that they support keeping Roe v. Wade. Now, of course, there are variations. There's nuance here of whether to add a few more restrictions or to remove some restrictions or just to leave it alone. For example, 61% said that they were in favor of a combination of limitations that included allowing abortion in just the first 3 months of pregnancy. 23% only in cases of rape, incest, or to save the life of the woman, or only to save the life of the woman, 9%. And so understand that this conversation is being driven by a very small minority of far-right people. And the reason is they want to control women. It's never been about being pro-life, understand. It's always been about having control of other people. If they were really pro-life, they wouldn't have to run around, or they wouldn't have ran around the country during a pandemic screaming about my body, my choice when it comes to masks and vaccines. I'm just saying. I mean, how many people died from COVID as a result of Republicans holding these mass events and not vaccinating and not masking? Whatever happened to medical tyranny? I mean, basically, what this decision will do will allow red states, conservative states, to deny medical care. And again, going back to being pro-life or pro-family. How about doing policies that are pro-family? What happened to the child tax credit? Did any Republicans supported to support the child tax credit? Did they? No, of course not. They all voted against that. What about healthcare? Universal healthcare. Do they support that? That's pro-life? No, they oppose that. Higher wages for people. Canceling student debt. Who wants to have a kid when there's $30,000 in student loans? When they're in that much debt? And when you're going to have to help your kid be able to afford an education. And that's assuming Republicans haven't privatized public education, which they plan on doing. How about being the party of we believe in the death penalty and yet we're pro-life. Their entire pro-life argument is based on lies. And when they do not have the truth on their side, they'll make things up. Oh, the Democrats, they're the ones that hate children. They're grooming them. That's what they're doing. They're not only grooming children, but they're also sacrificing them to Satan. Okay, but wait a minute. If Democrats are groomers and running a child sex trafficking ring out of the basement of a pizza shop, then why would they also simultaneously support abortion? That would mean no more children or less children to groom. None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. But you don't have to be logically consistent when you're conservative. Not anymore. Maybe there was a time when they were, but not today. Not today. It's lie after horrible lie. In this case, it's all in an effort to control women's bodies and to get votes from religious zealots who've never even read their Bible. Not once. Not a bit. We all knew this was going to happen when Republicans packed the court. Yes, and we absolutely said, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to pack the court. We need to pack the court back. And what happened? Democrats said, oh, no, we can't do that. No. That would be, that would be unprecedented. We can't do that. That'd be rude. Activist judges, they'll say things. They'll say mean things against us on Fox News. Absolutely pathetic. All right. Let's change subject here. And let's go to the subject of education. It appears that another right-winger has admitted that, you know what, maybe we should just get rid of education altogether. Take a look.
I mean, you just heard me read off 3 or 4 different just disgusting things that they are doing to push this nonsense onto our kids. And not every American can send their kid to a private school or homeschool.
Well, okay, if you are a parent, then you have a responsibility to your child, and how you get the education of your child done is really up to you. So I know that there are lots of people who say, but I can't this, I can't that. That's not the problem. The problem is your attitude. You have to get it done. You don't have a choice. And up until now, we've believed that we had choices. But here's the bitter truth. There is a war that is being waged in which they want your children. And there is no denying it now. The gloves are off. The blinders are off. You're talking about all the funding that's going to the anti-traditional agenda. It's anti-traditional. Why? Because they want your kids. They want your kids. They want your kids. You have to wage war against that. And if it means that your kids have no schooling whatsoever, they will be better off. I can't even begin to tell you the damage that happens to children in school. And if you don't believe me, it's because you've been schooled, not educated.
Oh, so you've been schooled, not educated. Wow. All right, so there's a lot in here. But again, this is Sam Sorbo. That's Kevin Sorbo's wife. She's a podcaster. She describes herself as an education freedom advocate, which apparently, in her case, means freedom from education. Just no education at all. Freedom. You have the freedom to be an idiot, to be completely ignorant. That's what she's saying right there. I mean, and by the way, I love that message, and then contrast it to something that she had said earlier when she said, I know there are lots of people who say, but I can't this, I can't that. That's not the problem. The problem is your attitude. You have to get it done. You don't have a choice. That's in response to a question that he said, well, hey, look, there are people that can't do private school or homeschool. And she says, suck it up. Suck it up. You have to do it. You have to do it. The problem isn't you. Or the problem is you. The problem is your attitude. Oh, so my attitude is just going to make money for private school magically materialize. Wow. The power of positive thinking. Thank you, Sam Sorbo. Thank you. No, you know what that advice makes me? Disappointed! Yeah. No. Okay, again, the context here is super important. If the right wing is successful in destroying public education, which is exactly what they want to do, they are trying. What does happen to those kids? Because look, the children of the working class will not be able to get educated, but the elites will. The elites and the wealthy, they're going to get an education, but your children will not. You're a regular person, you're going to get that. But I know you might say, oh, but the vouchers. They're going to give out vouchers, so it'll be all right. Do you think Republican states, right-wing states, are going to keep giving out vouchers after this is over? Once they've eliminated public education, once it's gone, do you think they're going to keep the voucher program? No, of course not. They're going to say, oh, you know what? Turns out we can't afford it. Sorry. You're just going to have to go work in the mines or something. Work in an Amazon warehouse when you're 6 years old. It's fine. You're better off. You're better off, says Sam Sorbo. Go to work. Get your ass to work. Be productive. That's what they're doing. And yes, Sam Sorbo is saying, I think it's great that your children don't get any education, that they just stay ignorant. And because you know why? That's what this entire thing's fight over education. That's what it boils down to. An educated populace is more difficult to control than an uneducated populace. I'm just saying, there's a reason they didn't educate the slaves, where there were rules against educating slaves. Because if you educate people, then they might not want to listen to you anymore. And so when you have an educated populace, well, guess what? They tend to be a little bit more progressive. People using facts and logic and reason, well, they don't generally cling to the old ways. And those old ways are fear and authority. That's it. Education, first higher education, and now K through 12, they've been targeted because successive generations have become more socially progressive. And so they've been chipping away, chipping away. First injecting right-wing economics into college level courses and into mainstream thought, while defunding schools in order to make education fail, and then point out, oh, look, education, it has failed. This public education, it's just not working out. Because we've defunded it. But don't worry, we got these charter schools, and we are going to give you these vouchers, public money, that you can go to these religious charter schools that I happen to be invested in. Weird. Now, not only that, but they've also started taking over school boards. They're assaulting libraries. They're getting teachers and professors fired with the cancel culture. Yep, that's a real cancel culture. And so they're also removing books with any mentions of race or sex or LGBTQ issues, even if they're age appropriate. And now the culmination of all of this is, hey, public school, let's just get rid of it. Do you remember this video? I showed it to you last week. Or was it before that? This is Fox News' Kennedy saying the same thing.
This will be a very important case for religious liberty, but also maybe a great time in our country's history where we rethink whether or not we have public schools. Maybe we should not have the government involved in education at all, so parents and teachers and administrators can make those decisions themselves instead of having the government impose it on them, because it is the public school aspect of this that is creating the legal challenge.
Maybe we should just think about not having public education at all. That's what they're going to do right there. Education in this country, I pointed out, has issues. Of course. But the difference between the two sides in this issue is there are people out there that want to fix it, that want to make education better, that want to make it more inclusive, that want to make, make it so that children have better critical thinking skills and can adapt to a new economy, 21st century, become the next entrepreneurs. And then there are people who don't want to fix it. There are people that want to destroy it. They want to burn it down, target our institutions, and replace them, well, not with a public institution that will take over, do a better job, but with institutions that will make it worse. Like the church, for example. Yeah, church is great for religion, not so good for education. And they want it for a specific purpose. To make people easier to lie to. And that they'll believe your lies. So they can maintain control. So understand then when Sorbo says, and she talks about this, they're after your kids. They're after your kids. They're after your kids. Well, again, that's like fear, for one, okay? So they're really pushing that fear narrative because I think that's a nod, maybe a subtle nod to QAnon. They're after your children, after your children, after your children. But it's also projection. I've talked about before, PragerU, Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, doing all these programs now for children to indoctrinate them into conservatism. Understand that it's all about projection. It always has been. Okay. Well, that's been a pretty heavy show. All right. Let's read some super chats before we head out. Let's see. Okay. A lot of engagement here. Dango Bangle with the most here. Striking down Roe v. Wade because the right to privacy will also affect the disabled, gay marriage, interracial marriage, acts of sodomy, possession of not safe for work material. Alito openly said he wants to strike it down. I've mentioned that. Yep. It will affect everything across the board. As Supreme Court leaks are as old as early in the 1800s. Slavery is now also up for debate. Right to an abortion falls under the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, protected by the Constitution. They want to outlaw birth control, literally shouting how they want. I don't know if I've heard them literally shouting about how much they want STDs to run rampant, but I'll have to look into that. Dem leadership would rather have you slip into fascism instead of protecting, even expanding upon civil rights. It's true. How do you vote harder when you don't have voting rights? It's another good point. Gabby, that's from Gabby Mathis. Republicans never lied to Collins. Collins lied to us. It's Dango Bango. It's true. Infinite Content with an interesting question here. Does the Constitution make any mention of corporations? That Alito argument can be used to undo Citizens United. Yeah, but would they? I don't think they would. Again, remember, this is the same court that also said that Citizens United, that political donations to politicians do not constitute corruption and don't even look like corruption. So they'd never do that. Of course not. Mark Davis says, weren't they the same clowns telling us the kids need to get back to school during the pandemic? And the kids not in school were all going to be abused. Yeah, I do happen to remember that. That's a great point, Mark. These children need to get back in school. They need to get back to school. And of course, I remember pointing out, like, they don't really care about getting the kids back in school. They just want to get the parents back to work. That's it. They just, I mean, all they wanted to do was get the parents back to work so we can reopen the economy. And that's it. That's it. Now, of course, they hate school. It's amazing. It's amazing. And there is absolutely no consistency when it comes to their beliefs. No consistency at all. It really is amazing. All right, let's go to Twitch here. I missed out on Twitch yesterday, so I apologize for that. So let's give some Twitch shout outs here for yesterday. Occam's Taser, thank you for resubbing with Prime for 12 months, a year. Wow. Somehow you managed to swindle me out of my money for an entire year. Kudos, no regrets. Well, apparently I'm pretty good at that. Kentucky Progressive Dragon resubbed with Prime for 8 months. Hey, 8 months with Bezos Bucks. Hey, you can, of course, support me with Bezos Bucks as well. By, of course, subscribing with Amazon Prime. All right. I couldn't think of it for a second. Christina, thank you for resubbing for a month at Tier 1. Simply saying, yay. Well, yay indeed. Yay indeed. Jay Hawker the Ball Dragon resubbed for a month at Tier 1 for 7 months. Time flies like dragons. True. Hunger Games 1989, thank you for the 340 bits. And thank you, Yvonne Trey, for resubbing for a month at Tier 1 for 3 months. Really, really appreciate that. So, Max Gattaca says it's incredible to think that the United States government still doesn't have any plan whatsoever for ending the fossil fuel industry and stopping Earth breakdown. But why would you do that when there's money? There's still money to be made. You understand it? It's all about the monies. It's all about making that cash. Got to make that green. You know, because, I mean, who cares if the entire planet is going to be uninhabitable? Sorry to say this, but a society that does not include women is losing. Why would you be sorry to say that? It's true. You have to include women. But they don't want to because guess what? They're threatened by it. They're threatened by women. They're threatened by other people taking their power. Can women who had an abortion in a blue state be arrested by in a red state? Good question. I mean, what that's going to do, and oh my God, that is a huge potential messed up like situation where you're going to have states fighting each other. You're going to have blue states fighting each other legally on legal grounds in red states. Because guess where all the people who are going to want an abortion? They're going to go to the blue states because it'll be legal there. And then you're going to have all these states fighting each other in court, suing each other over like, oh, you left this state to get an abortion. My law should apply in your state. That will violate the Freedom of Movement Amendment. You don't think they'd try anyway, though? The Republican Party has shown that they don't care about law. They don't care about order. They don't care about precedent. What they do is care about power. And so they will absolutely try to chip away at that. Although reactionaries are not logical at face value, there is logic to what they say and do because what they say and do is geared towards the consolidation of power and control or to try to strip other people of their power. By the way, yeah, important elections going on in Cleveland. Nina Turner, absolutely one of them. So you haven't already, go out and support Nina Turner against her primary opponent, Shontel Brown. Very important that you do so. That you do that. And Morgan Harper as well. So look, in primaries matter. Primaries matter so much. So I know, like I was railing against, vote harder. But when it comes to progressives, you actually do have to get them in office. Because they actually will do something if there's enough of them. Establishment Democrats will not. And that's the difference. Because they've shown that they won't. So you have to get more progressives. And not only that, but when you actually get progressives in there, you can't just leave them alone. You can't just, like, as soon as you elect them, go out to brunch. No, you still have to put pressure on them too. And so, yes, you do have to put pressure on AOC. You do have to put pressure on the feckless, terrible progressive caucus, which didn't even support Nina Turner, by the way. I could go on about that, but I got to go. I got some stuff to do, but thank you very much for the super chats, for subbing, and for all the wonderful stuff here. I really, really appreciate your support. For that, look, everybody, you have a great night. Try to, at least. We'll talk more tomorrow about this stuff. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
We'll do it live.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Oh no! Wet ass keyword.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.